If you're a live performance artist, actor, writer, director, singer, dancer, whatever, or just a patron and you've never been to a Fringe Festival, you are missing out. So today I'm gonna get you caught up on what I think is the best performing arts scene you may have never heard about, the Fringe Festival.
This is where an opening credits scene would go.
Hey everybody, my name is Chase Padgett. Welcome to my channel where I talk about performing arts stuff from my touring background every week. The central question this week is, what is a Fringe Festival?
Is he saying French Festival?
No, my aunt who never lets it go. It's Fringe Festival, meaning on the fringe. In short, it's a theater festival that can include all kinds of live performing arts. But before we go into further detail, we should probably talk about the history of Fringe Festivals, with the first Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe. The Edinburgh Fringe was a response to the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland in the 1940s, directly after World War II. A handful of theater groups that wanted to be in the festival didn't get in, so instead they just performed literally on the fringe of the Edinburgh Fest. Those performers on the fringe eventually joined forces, creating their own ticketing systems, their own platforms, their own administrative body, and then that festival became the only thing that anyone gave attention to. Now that was many decades ago. Now, the Edinburgh Fringe is the largest arts festival in the world, boasting thousands upon thousands of shows. I've actually been there, and it's an incredible experience. But it's not the only festival around that calls itself a Fringe Festival. There are fringes all over the world, across Canada, the US, Europe. Australia was actually an early adopter of this model in the 70s. That's why the Adelaide Fringe is the second largest fringe in the world, and the third largest fringe is also the oldest in North America, which is the Edmonton Fringe Festival in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, cool, it's a theater festival.
Well, it's actually a lot more than that. It's more than theater. It can be kind of anything, and that's because the people who run the festival do not direct or curate the shows for the most part. The people who produce the festival itself organize ticketing, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the general administrations, but the actual content of the shows are up to the artists and producers that sign up to do it. That means anyone can sign up, pay the fees, and boom, you're an artist performing in a festival. So maybe the best people to answer the question, what is a Fringe Festival, are the artists themselves. And luckily, I filmed a couple of my fellow artist friends this summer asking that question, what is a Fringe?
If you were to describe what a fringe is to someone who's never been and never heard of a Fringe Festival before, how would you describe that?
It's a bunch of people doing weird shows from the weirdest recesses of their minds, all in the same place.
It's a collection of wild, raucous, caucus individuals that just want to have a good time and make you feel and think.
Exciting festival.
Incredible festival.
Jim, how many fringes would you say you've done over the years?
I think I've done something like 140. Only me and Alex Dallas have done more than 140.
What would you say to someone, how would you describe a Fringe Festival to someone who's never been and never heard of it before?
Cheap mass theater.
It's weird, and there are surprises around every corner. And yeah, if you like art, you're gonna like the Fringe.
In summary, it's a cost-effective arts festival for weirdos who want to party. And we're done. Kidding, there's more to it than that, a lot more. Let's start tackling some of these elements one by one, starting with cheap. Normally, if you see a theater production, Broadway, off-Broadway, whatever, no matter where you are, you're spending lots of money to see it, upwards of $50 for the cheapest tickets, and oftentimes well into the three figures. But most Fringe festivals have ticket prices well under $20, and much of that money goes directly to the artists who are doing the show for you, meaning that the barrier to entry for cost for a lot of people is mitigated.
Does that mean the shows are bad because they're cheap?
My aunt is great. Now, they might not be the big Broadway spectacle that you would see if you're paying a bunch of money in Vegas or whatever, but that just leads to more stripped down, intimate performances that focus on the most mission critical elements of the show: writing, directing, performing, and originality.
Originality, ain't that just a word for weird?
Well, maybe, but in kind of a wonderful way. Some of the very best shows I have ever seen anywhere are from this environment, and they could only exist in this environment because a profit-minded producer might be a little too shaky about taking a risk on something that seems weird. But these financial constraints are loosened when the ticket price goes down, and much of those ticket prices go to the artists in the show. This, combined with most of the festivals being unjuried and uncensored, leads to a pretty beautiful culture of experimentation. This culture can lead to amazing, unforgettable shows where anything goes. Shakespeare, solo shows, dance, mime, burlesque, musicals, concerts, whatever. And this kind of leads me to my favorite description I recorded this summer of what a fringe really is.
So, Megan, what is your official title?
I am the executive director with Fringe Theater.
All right. How would you describe what a fringe is to someone who's never been or heard of before?
Oh man, it is a beautiful, creative collision of artists and audiences.
I think that's the best one so far.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
This beautiful collision of patrons, producers, volunteers, artists, festival managers, agents, on all fronts, helps a beautiful oasis of performing arts to pop up a few weeks out of the year. It's electric and exciting, and if you're like me, a touring artist that goes from festival to festival, this can last as long as you want it to. You end up doing your art and seeing art that influences you as a performer forever, and along the way, you end up making some friends that you will have for the rest of your life. These people share the highs and lows of touring their own creative work in towns they've never even been to before. You end up seeing art that changes your life and informs your own artistry moving forward, while meeting some of the coolest people who are doing other shows along the way. They become a sort of fringe family, or framily as we sometimes call ourselves. We share the highs and lows of performing life on the road, from sold out shows or the opposite, good reviews, bad reviews, frustrations with travel, all of it and everything in between. Many of my favorite people in the world I have met doing these fringe festivals. They are brilliant, kind, talented, hardworking professionals, but they're also my friends. If you are watching this and you're interested more in that performing arts culture that tours from town to town every summer, well, you're in luck. There was just a documentary released this year on Apple TV and Vimeo called On the Fringe about this particular circuit. It follows a handful of different performers along the entire circuit, as well as having interviews with fringe veterans like this guy who explain what the experience is like. Just go to onthefringedoc.com. Be forewarned, there's like another thing on Netflix right now called On the Fringe, and I think it's a thriller, serial killer murder thing. This is not that. This is a documentary, and there's no murder. But I wanted murder. Then listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this and found it of value, give it a like and a subscribe and all of the other things that you do on YouTube these days. Also, feel free to follow me on other forms of social media. All those links are in the description. See you around.
This is where the closing credits